Attention all grill masters and backyard barbecue enthusiasts. Lynn's has everything you need to make your 4th of July cookout a success. From sizzling certified Angus beef steaks and mouth-watering burgers to fresh-cut fruit and all the condiments you desire, we have you covered. Browse our weekly ad for celebratory savings like 39-cent per pound seedless watermelon through July 4th and shop online at lynsgrocery.com for extra convenience. Lynn's, where delicious begins.
Hey, it's Kim Commando Today, your daily podcast to keep you up to date with all things digital and beyond. And I'd love to have you be a part of our podcast. You can make an appointment to speak with me. Just head over to commando.com, and on the top right, there's a button that says Email Kim. Fill that out, and that's it. All right, let me ask you a question. Have you ever Googled something and you sit back and you're like, whoa, this just does not feel right. It doesn't seem right. The results are skewed. You're not alone. Google has long been accused and exposed of showing results that truly align with their agenda and their products. Like, for example, just search for a flight. Google is going to promote its own services, Google Flights, Maps, hotel listings, way ahead of any of its competitors, say Expedia or Yelp or anybody else. And some conservative commentators have said that conservative news outlets and articles are pushed way down in the search results in favor of what? More liberal viewpoints. But also, what about Google's autocomplete feature? I bet you never thought about this. You know, when you type something in and Google tries to finish the words as you're typing in certain letters? Well, there have been allegations that Google manipulates those autocomplete suggestions to prevent controversial topics from trending or becoming more prominent. I know, this is some pretty deep stuff. Well, we're going to do a deep dive on this today with Dr. Robert Epstein. He's a Harvard-trained psychologist, and he was once the editor-in-chief of Psychology Today. He founded the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology. And let me tell you, he's been sounding the alarm about big tech for a long time, especially how Google might be impacting democracy. So let me tell you, Doctor, it's such an honor to have you here with us today. So, Doctor, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. You know, I was on Joe Rogan's show last week for the second time, and I actually had a kind of a meltdown on his show. So don't worry, I'm not going to have another one today. But because this is very stressful, what we're doing is very stressful. There have been 6 incidents over the last 4 or 5 years of violence against people who work with me.
Oh, wow.
My own beautiful wife was killed in a very suspicious car accident in which the car was never examined forensically and in which it disappeared from the police impound lot. And
how horrible. That's horrible. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the point is that my life is very, very, very difficult. And the people I work with are very brave, and the incidents that have occurred are horrendous. They're scary, and I'm not accusing Google of doing anything, but I was at a lunch, believe it or not, a few weeks ago, and there was a man. I gave a little speech, and then there was a man there who's well known. I'm not going to say his name aloud, but he actually said straight out to everybody. He said straight out, he said, if I were Google, I would kill you.
Oh, my gosh. Really?
Yeah, because no one is doing the kind of research that my team is doing. No one in the world, because people are either scared of Google or because they're getting paid. They're getting research money from Google. So all universities in the U.S. get research money from Google, and so they won't do the kind of research that we're doing. So it's very hard to take on the most powerful company in the world, especially given that what it excels at, which is mind control. You said, what if the mind control machine doesn't want you thinking bad things about the mind control machine? That's the question. And that's the problem that I've faced now. It's more than 12 years of research, and it's very, very difficult. I'm not going to stop as long as I'm breathing. I'm not going to stop. But, I would be lying if I said this was easy to do. It's not. very difficult to do. And
I can imagine. Yeah, it's especially. I'm so sorry about your wife. That's horrible. So, was there a light bulb moment when you realized how much power companies like Google have over all of us when we use their search engine?
Not really. There were a bunch of crazy moments where I was getting numbers from our experiments that seemed impossible. So those were crazy moments. I would say for me to really understand what's been going on, it's just it's been a gradual process. And with each new discovery, I've become more and more concerned. The problem is much bigger than anyone knows. And it's probably even bigger than what I know at this point. We've just made new discoveries even within the past few weeks.
So we're talking about, as far as discoveries, that how Google manipulates the search results.
It's not just Google, and it's not just search results. It's a couple of big tech companies, and at this point, 10 different techniques that are being used. The first discovery was about the power of search results to shift people's thinking and behavior and votes. But that was just the first discovery. There have been 9 other discoveries since, and all of that scientific work has been through peer review and published in peer-reviewed journals. So it's very serious work, and it's very, very disturbing findings that have tremendous implications for our kids and the way our kids think, but also for our democracy. I don't think, honestly, that we've had free and fair elections in the United States since at least 2012.
Why is that? Is that because of the bias of search results and other plays? I mean, when you go on social media, what you see in your news feed, because, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, big tech, they have these algorithms, right? And people program these algorithms. So a lot of people don't realize that. I think, Doctor, that's like, they think like it just gets fed into some server and then it just gets, the results just get spit out. That's not the way that it happens.
No, it's people, and people have opinions and values and biases, and there's a very good research showing that the bias of a programmer very often gets built into an algorithm. But there's so many different things happening that are shifting people's behavior and thinking invisibly and in ways that you can't counteract. So, for example, right now, our monitoring system is showing nationwide that Google is sending on its home page, which is seen 500 million times a day in the United States, they're sending register to vote reminders to Democrats, and I happen to lean that way myself, at 2.5 times the rate they're sending them to Republicans. Now, that's going to turn any day now into partisan mail-in-your-ballot reminders, and then that's going to turn into partisan go-vote reminders. Those go-vote reminders on Election Day can shift more than 450,000 votes just that day alone. And if there's no monitoring system in place, if no one is collecting the data, then this is done without anyone knowing that it is occurring. These are massive manipulations. Bottom line on what's happening right now this year is that Google alone can shift between 6.4 and 25.5 million votes just in the presidential election.
Is it by when people go to search for things that they may show more positive things about Kamala or negative things about Trump? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, you're manipulated when you start to type a search term. Literally, with each character you type, you are being manipulated, because we've shown in controlled experiments that the search suggestions that they flash at you while you're typing can be used to turn a 50-50 vote among undecided voters into a 90-10 split.
Wow.
With no one having the slightest idea they've been manipulated. And that's just the search suggestions. Then down below, of course, they show you search results. If those are biased, and we track them so we know they are biased, if those are biased, that means since people tend to click at what's at the top and they tend to believe that it's what's at the top of the list, they're taking undecided voters by the millions every single day to websites that favor one candidate or one party. And when you do that with undecided voters, that shifts a lot of opinions. It's easy to shift opinions between 20 and 80% of undecided voters just with biased search results.
Get hyped with the new Pizza Hut My Box range. With 4 customizable My Box options for endless combos. That's bussin'. Order one My Box today and make it yours. Pizza or melts? That's your call. Sides? You can have 2 or a drink. So play by your rules. Set your terms and your conditions to match all cravings. New Pizza Hut My Box range. Your terms, your conditions. Pizza Hut. Order today.
Yeah, so Google alone, if you've been using the internet for 20 years, and by the way, I'm a big admirer of yours. I've been listening to you for a long, long, long time, and I consider you to be a real pioneer in getting the word out about technology to the general public. I don't think anyone matches you in that regard. But if you have been using the internet for 20 years, as I have, Google alone has the equivalent of more than 3 million pages of information about you.
Oh, my gosh.
So we're not talking about a few data points. We're talking about massive amounts of data. Google is surveilling people, not just in the obvious places. For example, if you're silly enough to use their Google search engine, which you absolutely should not do. These are all surveillance platforms. Gmail, which your radio show uses.
Yes.
In fact, as far as I can tell, everything that runs your whole show runs through Google, is shared with Google. And I hope I can convince you to move in a different direction. But it's not just through Android phones, which is Google, and YouTube, which is Google, and Google is everywhere. Google bought the Nest smart thermostat company a few years ago, and the first thing they did was install microphones so that they could pick up sounds in your home. They bought Fitbit so they could get physiological data on tens of millions of Americans 24 hours a day. Google Analytics is on tens of millions of websites, and it's there invisibly. It's for the website owners so they can track the traffic to their websites. But what you don't realize is that according to Google's terms of service, which we've all agreed to, if you're using any kind of Google software, even if you don't know you are, they have a right to track you. So they're tracking you on tens of millions of websites, everything you do on those websites. If you're silly enough to use their Chrome browser, they're tracking every single thing you do. If you have an Android phone, they're listening to you continuously. It doesn't matter whether you signed in or not signed in, or it doesn't matter whether you've given permission or not. Those phones are listening continuously, and all that sound is getting recorded and transcribed and analyzed. So the surveillance part of this is really scary, and one of our newest discoveries is of something we call DPE, the digital personalization effect.
Okay.
Here's how it works. One group, we show them biased search results, and we know we're going to get a shift in voting preferences that way. Another group, they're getting the same search results, same bias, but we're sending it to them in such a way that makes it appear that it's coming from their favorite news source. So we've asked them beforehand, to tell us all kinds of things about themselves, including, which news organizations they trust. And so in this second group, people are getting personalized biased search results. So the only difference is we've personalized what we're showing them.
So how might you do that? How might you personalize that? Give us an example.
Well, personalizing means that we're sending it from a news source they trust.
So if I say Yeah. So if I say like I like CNN or I like Fox News or God forbid MSNBC, that it would look like it was that or news organization was delivering me those results.
Exactly. Or if you said you liked Tucker Carlson, has become a friend of mine over the years, or Glenn Beck, or
anybody,
then we would send to this group, second group, we would send personalized biased content. So both groups are seeing the same biased news stories, but in one group we've personalized it. And here's what happens. In the first group, where they're seeing biased content, we'll get a shift in their voting preferences of, say, 20%. In the second group, and remember, they're seeing exactly the same content. It's just that it's coming from news sources they trust. In the second group, we'll get a shift of 60% or more, triple the effect just by personalizing content. And so that's the problem with all the surveillance, is that Google is using that information to personalize the content they're sending to more than 5 billion people around the world. And when you personalize content, that increases your ability to manipulate. That makes you more powerful, not just to make more money, but to manipulate people without their knowledge, without their consent.
Now, so they have now their AI search, AI overview, whatever you want to call it, Gemini. And this is going back around December of last year. I was looking for the Bible verse. You know the scene, Charlie Brown Christmas. Linus comes out with his blanket. Everybody knows this. And I said, so I went into Gemini and I said, what is the Bible verse when Linus goes out in Charlie Brown's Christmas special to say, the true meaning of Christmas? And Google Gemini came back and it said something to the effect of, giving you a Bible verse is too controversial. We don't really want to get into that. And plus, you have to realize that the Bible is a copyrighted material. And I'm thinking like, oh, God's going to come down and say.
Yeah, I think that. Well, the point is that there are so many scary things about Google, but certainly the content that they're suppressing is scary. In this case, they're telling you straight out that they're suppressing the content, but the fact is 99% of the time you don't know what they don't show. So that's serious. They're the gateway to all knowledge, and basically you don't know what they don't show. So that's one of the three big threats that they propose. The three big threats are surveillance, censorship, and manipulation.
See, and I don't think the average American sitting on TikTok, which is a whole nother different topic, we don't want to go there yet, but I don't think that the average American even realizes that this is even happening. Do you?
Well, my impression is that, number one, you're right. The average American has no idea. But number two, which I always add to the number one, is even more disturbing to me. Number two is that even people who do know, they don't care.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And that bothers me. In fact, what people say to me very often is, well, I have nothing to hide. What do I care that they're recording every single thing I do? Well, you have to care, because the problem is that gives them power over you. Where you have very strong opinions about something, they can't affect you very much. But we all have situations every day where we have to make up our mind about something. We're undecided, we're uncommitted, and that is where they have unbelievable power to push you one way or the other, and you won't know when they're doing it. I mean, they're literally having that kind of impact right now on more than 5 billion people around the world.
Get hyped with the new Pizza Hut My Box range. with 4 customizable MyBox options for endless combos. That's bussin'. Order one MyBox today and make it yours. Pizza or melts? That's your call. Sides? You can have 2 or a drink. So play by your rules. Set your terms and your conditions to match all cravings. New Pizza Hut MyBox range. Your terms, your conditions. Pizza Hut. Order today.
So, the solution, of course, I mean, you can try to use DuckDuckGo start page, right? Does that help?
Well, if you go to myprivacytips.com, which I update this article from time to time, I'll tell you what I do. In fact, this essay begins with the sentence, "I have not received a targeted ad on my computer or mobile phone since 2014. So there are things you can do to at least increase your own privacy and the privacy of members of your family. But, and that's good, and we should do that. Everyone should do that. And your show should definitely de-Google itself.
I know. It is, and I know exactly what you're saying, Doc. I do.
Yeah.
And I look at the options and we're just still trying to get people out of Microsoft Word, so
yeah, but seriously, go to myprivacytips.com and you'll see some very good options, and you'll see all kinds of resources there for making sure that you can use technology in a way that does not violate your privacy. So start there. The problem, though, is that these big threats that these companies pose, we don't have laws and regulations in place to stop them because no one ever anticipated that these problems would occur. So I'm in regular touch with attorneys general around the country, with members of Congress. I've testified before Congress twice. And I'm working with people constantly. I'm literally working right now with the police, because police often submit subpoenas to Google to get information about suspects. And the police are having a lot of trouble with Google because Google gives the police almost nothing. And I'm trying to explain to the police what information Google actually has. And, maybe over time they'll get more information out of Google. I don't know. The problem is that we don't have in place regulations and laws to constrain these companies. It's not just Google. Google is the worst offender and the biggest and most powerful. But we don't have laws and regulations in place. So there's a lot of work that has to be done here. Now, whatever work we do along these lines, what I have done, my own solution, is to follow the advice of a Supreme Court justice who 100 years ago, this is Justice Louis Brandeis, said sunlight is the best disinfectant. He also said, by the way, street lamps are the best policemen. So what I've been doing is building, since 2016, larger and more sophisticated systems for surveilling them. And by surveilling them, we now can make them accountable to the public. The system we have now is nationwide. It's the first in the world. We have so far preserved, we just crossed over last week, we've preserved more than 100 million ephemeral experiences on Google and other platforms. And this is content that they use to manipulate, and it's normally lost forever.
Like, give me an example. Give me an example of that.
Sure. Well, sure. Remember a couple of weeks ago, there was this news stories, people complaining about the fact that if they looked up Trump assassination attempt on Google, they were getting nothing. They were getting Abraham Lincoln. So, that's an example of them using search suggestions to manipulate. Well, the problem is that particular example is not court admissible. That's just an anecdote. But we're collecting, through our monitoring system, we're collecting search suggestions by the millions. and search results by the millions, and news feeds, and recommendations that they make on YouTube for which videos you should watch next. We're collecting all this information, which internally at Google they call ephemeral, meaning fleeting.
Right.
All this information is normally lost forever, and they know that. And as far as from their perspective, you can't preserve it from their perspective. 2018, there was a leak of emails from Google to the Wall Street Journal, and Google employees were asking, how can we use ephemeral experiences to change people's views about Trump's travel ban?
Oh,
so there it was, black and white. And that's what we are now preserving. We're preserving all this ephemeral content, which they thought no one could ever preserve, and we are preserving it, and we're collecting data from a politically balanced group of people around the country. That group, we expand more and more every day, so we're collecting data at a faster and faster rate every day. And we did pass the 100 million mark last week, so we've preserved more than 100 million of these ephemeral experiences. Do we see evidence of bias and manipulation? Oh, yeah, big time. And there are a lot of public officials now, there are a lot of public interest groups that I'm working with, and they're trying to figure out ways right now to use this wealth of data that has never been available before. So I think, monitoring is certainly, it may not be the solution, but it's one very powerful way of getting these companies to back off, especially on our elections, and to back away from our kids. So that's what I'm working on. And, of course, the data we're collecting will help our legislators and our regulators to craft over time effective regulations and laws. If they see what the problems are and they see what our data look like and they see what these companies are actually doing, I think then they can craft effective laws and regulations.
Well, this is all great stuff, Doctor. It is. And I'm so glad that it's your passion and that you've been able to harness these big companies and especially take on Google.
Get hyped with the new Pizza Hut My Box range with 4 customizable My Box options for endless combos. That's bussin'. Order one My Box today and make it yours. Pizza or melts? That's your call. Sides? You can have 2 or a drink, so play by your rules. Set your terms and your conditions to match all cravings. New Pizza Hut My Box range. Your terms, your conditions. Pizza Hut. Order today.
So do you think outside the tech industry, is there any other industry that has the capability to manipulate people as much as what you mentioned, Google, Alexa, etc.?
Well, there are the traditional means of influence that are being used, for example, by the pharmaceutical companies. So most of the ads on TV now are, for drugs. But see, that's not a threat because you can see the ads. Mm-hmm. And these are not mind control companies, they're pharmaceutical companies, and they're using traditional methods of influence. And by the way, they also have competitors. They compete with each other.
For sure.
Google has no competitor. 93% of the search done around the world is done on Google. They have no competitor. Bing gets about 2% of search, so it does not affect elections. Facebook has no competitor. People can't leave Facebook, generally speaking, because all their friends and family are on Facebook. So how do you leave it? And by the way, Google and Facebook both know that because the nature of their monopolies, they know they cannot be broken up. So when you see headlines saying this government agency is going to break up these tech companies, when you see that, it's just for show, because you cannot break up the Google search engine because it won't work. And you can't break up Facebook's social media platform because that would be putting the Berlin Wall through the center of every household. You can't break it up. And these companies know that. They know that some of these antitrust actions that have been started against them are really not going to hurt them at all, might even help them. So these are tough targets, very tough targets.
For sure.
For us to go after. As I say, though, I am a little nervous every day. That's true. And my life is, I would say, pretty rough compared to the way it used to be. But I'm not going to stop. And I think that, by the way, it's possible in the next year or so, this system, this monitoring system we've set up to surveil them, to make them accountable, I think it's going to be fully funded at some point, and I think it's going to become a permanent and self-sustaining system. I've already been asked by people in 7 other countries to help them set up monitoring systems. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do that, not until our own system is permanent and self-sustaining, because as long as there's an internet, and as long as companies like Google appear, you have to have in place systems that monitor what they do. You must. It's not optional. You must, because if you don't have systems in place, how would you know right now, for example, that they're sending out partisan register-to-vote reminders?
You wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't know. No, I mean, there's, unless there is somebody tracking, somebody taking a look. Doctor, thank you so much for being here. So it begs the question, just because I know that people are listening right now and watching and they're wondering, like, so how do you pay your bills? How are you paying your staff? Where's that money coming from?
Well, I don't know if I've ever said this on the air, but I actually don't take salary for what I do. So how I pay my bills is is a good question. I work as a volunteer, and we've had 26 people just on the research side working on our research projects this summer, and I think 22 of them were volunteers. So we have a lot of people who help us without charging us. That helps. But setting up this nationwide monitoring system in 2023, that cost $3 million, and it's cost another $1 million since to keep it going. So where does the money come from? Well, we have tens of thousands of people donating to us constantly.
I could talk to you for another hour. Good. I want you to come back, because sure. as soon as the people listen to this and be like, okay, I have questions. And so if you have questions that you would like to ask Dr. Epstein, what I would like you to do is, I know you want to leave them all over social media, and I love that, and that's great. But the best place for you to send me a note is by going to my website. That's commando.com, of course. And then there's a link that says Ask Kim at the top. I read every single note that you guys and gals send me through the website. And so we're gonna collect all those questions. Okay, is that cool?
Cool with me.
Okay, and then now, as far as people trying to figure out how to live a Google-free life, and I'm going to make you a promise, I'm going to look into it myself. I'm guilty of it. Just as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, you know what? It's like I'm feeding the beast as well, because of convenience, ease of use. Check all those boxes. Is it myprivacytips.com? Is that it?
myprivacytips.com, and that will help you and your show to de-Google, and anyone who's listening to me, myprivacytips.com, you really should do this. It's very freeing, by the way, when you de-Google and you realize, my God, I'm actually communicating now with my friends and family without anyone being able to read our communications. It's very freeing, because I think young people don't even know what the word privacy means. They've never lived in a world of privacy.
Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they don't know that. And if somebody would like to help your cause and donate, where do they go for that?
They can go to techwatchproject.org. So Tech Watch Project is all one word, techwatchproject.org. Or if they want to look at the Digital Shield, they can go to americasdigitalshield.com, and there's a donate button there as well. But please take a look at that Digital Shield, because you'll see the data as the data are coming in from around the country, and you'll see the extreme bias. You'll see the manipulations. And again, if without a system like this in place, there would be no record, absolutely no record of what they're doing.
Well, keep strong. You know, it's tough. It's tough when you are, I can't imagine what you're going through every day, especially on a personal level, professional level. But I'd love to have you back, Doctor, and thank you for being here. So what are the big takeaways here? Okay. Yes, Google provides a lot of useful services, but they're not always impartial. So what exactly can you do? All right, you can switch to a more privacy-focused search site like Startpage or DuckDuckGo. I mean, they avoid personalizing results based on your search history or Google's business interests. Now, there are also meta search engines like MetaGur or SearX. What they do is they aggregate results from multiple search sites to give you a larger perspective. And then for your news, well, don't go to Google News. Use All Sides or Ground News because they provide stories from multiple viewpoints and that you may not always get in, say, mainstream coverage. So it takes a lot of work to not use Google search whenever you're looking for something. So whether you're listening to the podcast or watching this on YouTube, I mean, one of the things that we can do together is we can game Google's algorithms. What are you saying, Kim Commando? Okay, let me tell you the secret. The more people that engage with this product, with this show right now, well, that's going to tell Google like, oh, this is super important. More people should know about it. So what you want to do is hit that like button and drop a comment or two. And I read every single comment, rest assured. And thanks for being here. And thanks for being here, as always.
This program is a copyrighted production of Westar Multimedia Entertainment and protected by the copyright laws. Any rebroadcast or use of this program for commercial, business, economic, or financial purposes without the written permission of Westar Multimedia Entertainment is strictly prohibited.
Macy's has all of your Grill Master essentials for Father's Day. Stop by to get our hand-trimmed chicken breast and certified Angus beef patties that are ready to grill, so Dad can have his favorite dinner. Make sure to browse our bakery to find the perfect no-work Father's Day treat with our decadent peanut butter bars or famous donuts. Right now, you can get boneless beef ribeye steaks for $12.99 per pound at Macy's. Shop these Father's Day essentials in-store or online at Macys.com through June 18th. Macy's, happy shopping!